Welcome to another episode of Wine and Witchcraft, where tonight we have a couple special things. First being the witch's tongue, and second thing is the new intro.
Come as you are, as you were, as I want you to be, as a friend, as an old enemy. Take your time, hurry up, the choice is yours, don't be late. Take a rest as a friend, as an old memory. Come doused in mud, soaked in bleach, as I want you to be, as a trend, as a friend, as an old.
Are we live?
We are. So we have a lot of comments. They love the intro. So you're welcome. You're welcome.
Take the bow.
Masterpiece. I created that. Spend, what was it, like 4 or 5 hours? But I fucking love it. I worked so hard on it. I'm glad you guys love it too. But anyway, welcome to the show. Wine and Witchcraft, baby.
It's that time again. It always rolls around. Let's take a look and see who is in the chat. We have They Are My Soul. We have TJ the Eclectic Healing Witch. Okay, let me just also clarify before we get started. I've already had almost a full glass of wine and I forgot the alcohol content. So I'm already kind of loopy. So just know that from the get. Penny, hello, stranger. Nice for you to join us. We have Whitney. We have Owlvine, our tried and true. Debs is the black cat. Hi.
I love it. It's the black cat.
It's the black cat. Soulless Ember, hello. It's been a long time. Crafting Witch, of course. Mr. T. We have Trish. We have Debbie Dunaway. Oh my goodness, Hugo 8-track. Who else? Is there anyone in here that I haven't shouted out? Yes. Sherry LaFana, Haniana, Hana. The intro is so good. We really wanted to. We're going for a darker theme. And we just did a complete and utter makeover. So
it was so weird how it happened. I found the song first. And I don't know who sings. Obviously, it's Nirvana, but it's a cover, you know. I don't know who the artist is that sings it. I found the song, and I actually love her cover more than I love the Nirvana original. But I was like, it gave me goosebumps. I was like, this is it. This is it. And then I went to work and spent 4 or 5 hours doing all the B-roll and all the things and putting all the things together. But when I was done and I showed to Justin, I'm like, this is the best masterpiece I have ever fucking created. I love it. I'm glad you guys love it too. So, yeah. So what are you drinking tonight?
Okay, so again, like I said, I forgot. We did put a poll out on the Wine and Witchcraft channel. We had like over 50 people who voted in the poll.
Yeah.
So you guys definitely wanted us to get drunk tonight. We appreciate we appreciate your enthusiasm. We greatly appreciate that. I forgot again to pick up wine, so I Instacarted some groceries,
Of course.
and I had to do the winking owl. And tonight we were doing Pinot Grigio. Again, forgot this is 12%, not 5 or 8. So again, with the slight intoxication, 5 minutes into the show.
Well, I have my favorite wine downstairs from Lake Ridge Winery, and I was gonna drink it, and then I was at Target today, and I saw this, and I said, you know what? I'm just gonna try a little something different. So this stuff is evil because it's called Sun Pop Watermelon Moscato, and I'm just gonna tell you, this shit tastes like a watermelon Jolly Rancher. It doesn't even taste like fucking wine. So, I mean, I'm not that deep into the bottle or anything, but this could be a dangerous situation. So I'm drinking some Sun Pop.
And it's delicious.
It's watery.
It's watery. Okay. What is everybody else drinking tonight? Are you drinking? What are you eating? Go ahead and fill us in on what is in your mouth besides the kinks. So we were talking about what we wanted to do for this episode, and we came up with this ridiculous title called The Witch's Tongue. And I'm sure you guys obviously saw the thumbnail and thought, what the hell are these bitches talking about? And the truth is, we don't know. We just wanted to get you here. No.
And take advantage of you.
Right, and take advantage of you. So we are talking about the power of the spoken word, spellcraft, and everything that kind of goes into that, because we've been getting a lot of comments and some messages about building spells, not just from newer witches, but people who've been practicing for a long time. And there's constantly certain things that are discussed within the community. So we thought we'd just hit on that, have some fun, and drink along the way. Whitney says she's drinking beer. Someone else said they're drinking coffee. A very dry martini with some biscotti. Okay. A flavored kombucha. Every time I hear kombucha, I think of poison. It tastes like water.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry.
It's just not for me. I try to get on the kombucha thing, and I felt like I was drinking mud.
Well, you know what turned me away from it was the fact that I've seen some people make it, and it's got this like layer of film on the top that's like mold or whatever, and I'm like, all right, I'm good. No, thank you. No.
We have coffee and Twizzlers. We have Mike's Hard Lemonade. Okay, someone just finished finished eating dinner and is now drinking a zero Dr. K. Okay.
Why did I think I thought that said Sugar Daddy K. I don't know why.
Oh, a sugar daddy. Okay.
Sugar Daddy K.
Nothing wrong with the sugar daddy. Okay, so let's get into the topic, Brittany. What are we talking about tonight?
Okay, so, it kind of occurred to me, I was thinking about when I first started witchcraft, I didn't have my own witchy room, right? And it was kind of like my area of, spirituality, witchcraft, whatever it was at the time, because I wasn't really sure what the hell I was doing, was in a public area in my home. And, the whole idea of writing your spell or whatever, and then speaking the words. You kind of feel like, what was the word you used in the green room? You felt
stupid.
Right. So you kind of like, okay, can I say the words of power for this spell in my head? Do I have to actually like say them? That was one thought. And then, some people whisper them and some people just will yell them, scream them, talk them, whatever. Just kind of like got me thinking about like the progression of like those words, and how different people do it different ways. Do you say the words of power in your head? Do you whisper them? Do you speak them? Because not everybody is, I don't know if the word comfortable is the right thing, but they're kind of maybe new, or they just kind of are around other people that might be judgmental, or, I just kind of wanted to talk about those words of power. There's many segments to this whole conversation. That's not the whole entire show, but it just kind of brought up that whole part of speaking the words of power when you write a spell, when you do a spell, or any kind of chanting or talking to deity. Do you do it in your head? Do you whisper it? Do you say it out loud? Those kinds of things of the witch's words.
I mean, for me, when I think about speaking, okay, so for me, starting off in witchcraft, I felt the best word that I can think is stupid. I felt stupid. I felt kind of funny speaking spells. So I would just, recite them in my head.
Mm-hmm.
I used, like Owlvine is saying, I used to say everything in my head. I would not say anything out loud. I feel like over time it's progressed, and I think there's something very specific, whether you're a witch, if you use the term witch, or you're just a magical practitioner in general, which I think that can be a religious person too, whether you're Christian, whatever the case may be. There's something very different about speaking it and using your vocabulary rather than saying it in your head. I personally think there's something more powerful in speaking it, because you're scientifically, your voice has movement. You know what I'm saying? So there's a movement, there's an added element to the spell, I think, when you actually vocalize it. I found over time, and Brittany, I don't know about you or anybody else in the audience, but I have found over time when I've become more comfortable, I use different ways of vocalizing things. So when I'm doing just a normal spell or something that doesn't feel, I don't know that normal's the right word, but if I'm doing a money spell or something for confidence, or I'm doing saint work, or I'm talking to Hecate, I just use my normal voice. I just use like conversational speech. If I'm doing something more baneful, I tend to have more of like a growl in my voice. I become more aggressive. And I have found that when I use divination, I oftentimes whisper. Or if I'm doing something more careful, I use whispering. You also know that I like to breathe on things because I'm a weirdo.
I mean, for me, I wasn't comfortable with, everybody hearing what I was saying. So for me, it would be, I started out when I, first started out a long, long time ago, it was all in my head. I kept everything in my head. And then the more I got comfortable within my own skin as being a witch, and more comfortable in my practice, and really stepped into like, no, like, fuck you, this is who I am. And like, it became more, that became a whisper. And then now the whispers, I don't really do the whispering. I don't yell, but I'll just talk in my normal voice. But I do remember in the very beginning, many, many moons ago, I mean, God, we've been doing this for 18 years, something like that. It was all in my head. I kept it all in my head because I was self-conscious about things. I don't want to be judged by other people, all those kinds of things. Now I'll just say it out loud, but I do remember that.
One is kind of like a judgment of self too. You know what I mean? Because you feel kind of funny because I think there's self-conscious about it. Yeah. And am I doing this right? Do I sound funny? Mm-hmm. Also, I was just thinking when I do, I'd be interested if anybody else does this, but when I do baneful magic, I use a lot of swear words too. Yeah. That's something that I'm very keen on is using that type of language, just because I feel like, cursing typically is something that's very emotive, right? And you usually are feeling a lot of passion, whether that's anger. It's typically anger when you're cussing. And I just feel like that feeds the spell more energy to use that type of language, which is something I never did before either. I do feel like the more comfortable I've become and the more I've explored, I've become more confident in what I'm doing. Like when I'm speaking something. Rather than before where I'm like, okay, I'm just going to keep it in my head. But there is still an element of that. Like when we have practiced magic together, neither one of us really speak it fully out loud either. You know what I mean? Because it's kind of like, it's just a weird thing, except for, you know, when we did our magic in the woods, but we knew what we were saying. You know, we coordinated, we had a script, we knew how we were going to move forward. But when we've just been at the altar practicing magic, there's still sort of a nervousness to that because it's your own personal words. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. You know, and then you kind of get into the whole, when you write it, if you're a person that writes it or you just memorize it, whatever, the whole, is it, and I know we always preach nothing is wrong. No way of doing magic is wrong. And I stand by that 100%. But you still have that self-conscious of like, what if I'm writing this spell wrong? You know what I mean? Even though you know and you feel it, like nothing, like witchcraft is how you do, nothing is wrong or right. It is what it is. It's your own power. You still have that, like, what happens if these words are not going to work? You know, like, I didn't write this right. And then you get into the whole, and I know me as a baby witch, like I was like really fresh into it. Like, oh my God, the words have to rhyme. That was a huge thing, you know, because you see it in Hollywood, right? In Charmed, all their spells rhymed and all this kind of stuff. So you kind of get into that, like, that rhymey thing. Like, do I have to rhyme? You don't, but you know, you second guess yourself a lot, you know, when you're fresh on the path, you know. I know I did, for sure.
And what Faye, my soul, said, it has to be in my head for me because I will confuse my words. It's the ADHD in me. I'm so glad you brought this up. So something I did for a long time was I felt the need to come up with the words before I went into the working. Mm-hmm. So I would think about, you know, if I'm using a candle, the correspondences of the color, thinking about herbs, thinking about oils, like, you know, all the elements, all the components of the spell first. And then I would come up with the actual spell. Like, what are my words going to be? What am I going to say? How am I going to say it? And I have found over time that that's really debilitating to me. Yeah. In my own experience, because I get fatigue, kind of like what she was talking about. Is, okay, well, does this make sense? Are the words placed right? Does it sound good? You know, because you want it to sound good in your head, and if you're saying it, like, you want it to sound nice. I don't think it's a prerequisite, but I think it's definitely something that, like, we crave for. Like, you want to feel the magic. You know what I mean?
The element of, like, you know, everybody always says when you write your spells, whether it's memorized or written, whatever, when you write them, you have to be specific. So then you start second guessing yourself. Well, shit, was that specific enough? Or was I not specific enough? You know, all that kind of insecurity of the witch's tongue, as we're talking about, you know, when it comes to spell crafting and spell writing, I think is something that we all deal with, no matter if we're a month in or we're, you know, 25 years in. I think we all kind of deal with that, you know?
Agree. And like Alvine said, I often babble during workings. I speak what I need. Sometimes a chant comes to me through the process. A lot of times I'm just weaving the words. That has really been my process lately. I have found that I don't worry about the words until it's time to do the working. Like I did an enchantment before the episode, before tonight's show. And I didn't think about what I was going to do. So I start the working and I just kind of literally what you're saying, start babbling. And eventually it starts to make sense and it starts to sound right. And then I've kind of gotten past the point where I don't care how it sounds. If it encapsulates what I'm trying to do, that's really all that matters. And I think that's one reason why I have connected so well to saints and to Hecate and to kind of working with spirit in that way, is because I kind of moved past, and Brittany, I don't know if you've had this experience in your practice with Santa Morte, but I've kind of moved past this idea of a spell, right? Like, okay, this is what it is. It's going to rhyme. It's going to be beautiful. Like, I'm going to put Edgar Allan Poe to shame. Okay, this is the best thing ever. And I've kind of just approached it in a way where I'm sitting in front of a saint and I'm going to say what I'm going to say. And we're just going to have a conversation. Like, you know what I mean? And just approach it more in a conversational state rather than an elevated magical experience. You know what I mean? And it's really taken away a lot of the, like, the pressure that I put on myself. Cause I feel like us as witches, because we don't have a set dogma, like everybody has to do this, and this, we feel a lot of fatigue, I think is a good word. And a lot of like you were saying, like a lot of self-doubt about, does this make sense? Is this stupid? Like, why doesn't this spell sound right?
It's not gonna work. And then, you know, there's that whole, you put out your spell, right? You have your little card and you got your spell on it and you're sitting there and you're reading it, but then you trip over the words. Right? And then you say to yourself, well, shit, I fucked up the words. Do I start over? Like,
no.
Wait, shit, I fucked up. Do I start hold on. And then you sit there and you're like, then after you're done, right? You finish the spell, you're definitely like conscious and you're like, well, I fucked it up, so it ain't gonna work. You know, I'm sure I'm not the only one in craft that has done that.
No, I feel you on that.
It's all a big, you know, self-conscious. It's like singing in front of others. It's awkward. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's
so Brittany, when you're
on a stage, you know, when you make a spell and deity is there, you're kind of like, spotlight's on you. You're like, okay, can't fuck this up.
Right. Yes. So when you work with Santa Morte or any other spirit work that you do you focus heavily on the spell, or do you have more of a conversational speaking? Like, are you just talking? Like, how does that look for you specifically?
So when I'm doing spells that don't require deity, that I'm just doing spells to go out into the universe for spirit, just putting them out there, and deity is not directly involved. Usually for me, it's something I've written out. It's something I've memorized, or, you know, even just a one sentence liner kind of thing. But I find when deity is involved, it's more of, there's nothing written. It's just like, this is what's going on. It's like having a counseling kind of like session. Like,
yes,
this is what's going on.
That's a good way to put it. That's a very good way to put it.
And this hoe did that. And we need to do some badass witchery. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to need your assistance to take this shit and carry it where it needs to go. Okay. We all good? Kind of that thing. And then I do the working. So it's kind of, when deity's involved, it's kind of just like talking to like your bestie who's going to kick someone's ass for you. But when it's just doing something that's just, you know, doing with your own power and just sending it off into the universe, and there's no deity involved, it is a written out situation, you know. Or if there's a petition involved, I read the petition before it goes under a candle, over a candle, or wherever. So it's that kind of thing. But I have to say, you know, obviously the older I've gotten and the more progression into my craft has happened, you know, I don't have a lot of that self-doubt, self-conscious stuff. But I can't help but always remember what it was like. So I know there's a lot of people that probably struggle with the same things that I struggled with, you know, back in the day, whatever. So
when you mess up, do you start over?
Yeah. Here's a good example. There's a spell right here that I did at like 8:00 today before I started the show, before we got into the studio and started the show. And I had my shit written, right? And my cat, Magic, decided, I want to see what the fuck mommy's doing. Like, how dare you leave me? So I'm like halfway down the spell. I'm reading. I'm like, I'm all in, you know? And he starts scratching at the door. And I'm like, motherfucker. So the spell stopped because Magic had to figure out what the fuck was going on. You know, he's Magic. He's a magical kitty cat. He's like, you ain't doing no spells without me, bitch. So I open the door. He comes trotting in, plops down on the ground. I'm like, okay, can we resume? And he just looked at me like, meow. So I closed the door and I started all over again. So for me, yeah, I do. I start over.
Do you guys start over if you mess up? Do you guys start over? How do you guys approach that? For me, I think because I approach it in more of like a babble, like Owlvine was saying, I tend to babble through it till I find my words. I don't start over, but if something happens like with what you're saying, like someone interrupts me, then I do start over. I'm thinking about
Like
that.
if you're in the middle, okay, here's the thing. When you're in a spell and like when you're in it, right? You're in it. And you're kind of like you're here, but you're really not here because you're like you got the goosebumps thing going on, you got the lightheadedness, and you're in you're somewhere else, right? And that's broken. You're in the middle of setting something off, right? You're in the middle of making magic, and that's broken in half because Penelope comes knocking on your door, or Rachel can't find the keys, whatever, and you're completely broken out of your trance. You're gonna tell me you're not gonna start over?
No, I do. In those instances, I do. Yeah, because it gets you completely out of the headspace that you need to be in. Yeah. So I do start over in that sense. And it looks like everybody. Okay, Sola says she keeps going. Kayla Marie says she starts over. Easily distracted. I feel that way. I feel that way a lot, that I'm easily distracted by things. I'll be doing a working or I'm pulling cards and I'll be looking on the table. I'll be like, oh, what is that? Or, oh, what's going on here? And then I'm like, okay, focus on what you're doing. Focus on what you're doing, bitch. I find it hard for me as well to stay focused.
Yeah, and that's why I always like, if I'm doing something serious, like if it's Sabbath ritual that I'm doing, or there's a spell that I need to do that's very, very, very fucking important, and everybody in my house is home, I'll tell Anthony, I'm going in the witchy room, I got shit to do, do not bother me. Like, I'm off limits, okay? In the new house, we were just having this discussion. The new house, the witchy room is downstairs and everybody else is upstairs. So I'm like, bitch, you can't come disrupt me now.
Exactly. You're away from everybody. All they have to
do is walk down the hall, and I'm here. So.
Right. I also, I think we had talked about this an episode or two ago with Aradia, and Brittany brought this to light in the studio before we went live, about my conversations with Hecate and changing the language and the power of language.
That's another part of the witch's tongue, changing the language of your spell work, rituals, words of power, the tongue, whatever you want to call it.
The tongue. So I was inspired. I don't even know. Well, I was inspired partly by Aradia when she made a video on her new channel about ends. And in conversation with Hecate, I just felt this desire to change how I speak with her. And so when I'm having normal conversation with her, right, and like daily speaking, I speak to her in English. But a chant that I came up with, I changed from English to Latin. And there is something about it that makes me feel much more connected than it does when I speak in English. Now, this could all be a placebo, okay? You know how I am, how I'm analytical.
You're a Virgo, that's the problem.
I'm a Virgo. It's probably a placebo, and I just think that it feels different. It's really not. But to me, it feels more powerful to speak in that language, to speak in Latin rather than to speak in English. Has anybody else done this? Or maybe you speak in your native tongue, maybe English or whatever language isn't your first language. So you speak in Spanish or, whatever other languages there are.
I could never do that. And I give you complete props to doing that because I can't speak other languages. Let's be honest. Even when I read another language, I can't pronounce it. For instance, I don't even say Santa Muerte correctly. And you always make fun of me the way I say it because I can't do it the way you do it with the little rolling of the tongue and the blah, 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 blah. I say it very white girl. She doesn't care. She honestly doesn't give a shit how I say it. I sometimes call her a bitch and she's like, what bitch? We kind of did one of those like gangsta kind of things. But, we have that relationship where I don't have to be all professional, whatever. But, that's the thing is I can't speak other language. When I read them, I can't read Latin, forget it. It ain't going to happen. French, forget it. Spanish, no. German, no. I can't speak it to the point where I feel confident enough that it would even matter. Does that make sense? That's why I give you such props to being able to change it to Latin, actually say it in Latin, because forget it. I'd be like, I can't. I can't.
It's like listening
I
to it
say
over and
everything
over
with
again.
white girl vibes. Like, for instance, you know, when I worked at Walmart, a lot of my good friends, they were from the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico. Those were my girls. And they would try to teach me like things to say, like, and they would call me, I'll say it like a white girl, gringa loca. It means a crazy white girl, because I would try to, I'm like, teach me Spanish, teach me like the cuss words, teach me something. And they would teach it to me and I would repeat it like a white girl and they would just bust out laughing because I say everything with a white girl twang. And I don't do it any language justice, so I don't even try. Yes, white girl vibes. Sorry.
Right, you know Latin. I know what Chat GPT and Google Translate help me.
Chat GPT is actually very, very accurate with translations to languages, surprisingly.
Well, I first started, so when I graduated X-ray school, I learned a little bit of Spanish so that I could communicate with the patient and tell them what I needed them to do. And I'm just kind of fascinated by language when it comes to that. And I don't know what the pull to Latin is. I think it's just speaking in a language that's not my own, speaking in a language that
Latin, I think, is really pretty, though. I think it's kind of astute. It's a very astute language, and I kind of like it for that reason, but I could never say it. This is, even when I lived in Germany for 3 years, and I worked on the Air Force base at a 7-Eleven type, like a military 7-Eleven. It's called the Shopette. And I remember a lot of the German vendors would come in and drop off their breads and stuff like that. And I would try to say good morning and thank you. And they would be like, white girl, you know what I mean? Or dumb American. And they would just walk off. I tried. It didn't work.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm definitely doing chants. My chants for her are in Latin, but again, I'm not boasting because I can't speak fluent Latin or anything. I have to memorize it, and that's what I can speak. You
can read it and repeat it, right?
Yes.
I can't. No, fuck that. Pig Latin, yes.
Not pig Latin, honey. Hey, Rachel's in the chat. Justin used to be able to say some Tagalog phrases when my mom was alive. Yes, I used to be able to speak Tagalog. I'm really rusty now. I don't know. I find it very fascinating, but my chants are in Latin. Any ritual or anything that I do with her is in English, though, because let's not get crazy.
Tagalog, does Rachel speak any Tagalog? Because I've never heard her speak any.
So she sounds a little white girly.
Okay.
Her accent is not. Her accent's not great, but she fluently understands it. So we were watching a Filipino scary movie, and I'm like, you're gonna have to translate this to me because I don't know what they're. I love that. I don't know a lot, but she can translate it. She can understand it 100% without a problem. But I would love to be able to do a full ritual in Latin, but oh my God, the studying, the memorization that would take. I mean, that's the goal one day, but if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, I'll throw myself down the flight of stairs.
I think for me, we're talking about white girl languages, being born and raised in Boston, I'm kind of being in Boston, being in Massachusetts really is very secluded with language. You're just very secluded. And then coming down to Florida, where you have so many different languages, right? You're literally thrown into it. You got Haitian Creole. You've got, different dialects of Spanish because you've got Puerto Rican Spanish and you get Dominican Republic Spanish. Then you have Spanish, like Spain Spanish. So you have all these different kinds of dialects of Spanish. And then like I said, you have the Creole and stuff like that. And you're kind of thrown in, and that's why for me, I wanted, I would just have a ball with my girls at Walmart because we would just sit there and I'd teach me. But, for me, it's just so difficult to understand other languages. I mean, I failed Spanish and French in high school. I tried it. I couldn't do it. I don't know. But I give props to anybody who can put different languages into their witchcraft with ease or flawlessly. It's not easy. That's hard.
And when I was learning Spanish originally, I was doing registration in the ER, right? So I, I had learned everything I needed to learn, and I could understand what they were telling me. And I went into this patient's room, and I started speaking Spanish to her, and then she kind of looked at me funny and started speaking, and I was only able to pick up a couple words
because they speak so fast.
And I asked her to repeat, so she repeated it, and I was like, okay, I'm lost. I have no idea what she's saying. So I got one of the other ladies that worked with me. Her name was Alba. So she came in and started speaking to her, and the lady was speaking to her, and she turned to me. She goes, "She's speaking Portuguese," and I said, "What?" She said, she was like, Portuguese and Spanish there's similarities. I said, "So what did she say?" And she's like, "I don't know." And I was like, got it. Okay. So there are similarities with that. And even with Tagalog, which for those of you who don't know, that's the national language for the Philippines, although each area of the Philippines has their own dialect. So the thing about the Philippines is you will know Tagalog, and then you'll know your own province, your own cities dialect, and then they also learn English. So you normally have like 3 languages. But the Philippines has been so inundated with Spanish conquest that a lot of their language has Spanish terminology. So a lot of times Rachel can understand Spanish too if they're speaking a certain dialect, because some of the words are the same.
Well, there's also that mistaken identity too, where a lot of people think that she's Spanish, and they'll just start to speak in Spanish, and she's like, "I'm Filipino."
Correct.
I've been with her when that's happened, and she's looking at me like, "I'm not fucking Spanish."
She's like, I'm not Mexican. I don't
brown. Know. That doesn't mean I'm Spanish.
Right. I don't know what you're saying. I'm sorry. I got like 3 words of what you said to me.
But I mean, yeah, it's one of those things where I honestly kick myself in the ass and wish that I was more adept to learning different languages, because I think that would be kind of cool to know different languages, different cultures through language, really, I think that'd be kind of cool.
Well, I mean, just make up a small little chant, like literally like 5 words in Spanish, because you work with Santa Muerte, and just listen to it over and over again.
But see how you say Santa Muerte, and the way I say Santa, like Santa Claus, and I say Morte.
Well, you've gotten better though, because you used to say, I feel called by Santa Muerte. And I said, who? I said, are you talking about Santa Muerte? And she was like, that's what I said. And I said, no, you said Santa Muerte. It's Santa Muerte. And she was like, look, bitch. Okay, no. So the enunciation has gotten better. Your enunciation has gotten better. So maybe in 15 years, I think it comes from performing oral sex on a female. You just, that tongue gets worked out in a different way.
Oh, shit. Oh, okay.
You got to do, like, look up some speech pathology exercise. You got to get that tongue relaxed.
Oh. Can you imagine, like, me standing at the altar, and then Anthony comes and asks me something? I'm going,
yeah.
What the fuck?
What is happening? But yeah, I don't know. I think you should try it and just see.
I will take it under advisement, under consideration.
I will file that under my to-do list. I'll file that under never gonna happen.
But getting back to the witch's tongue. So what about, besides changing the language, other things that you might do with the witch's words, the witch's tongue? Is there anything else that you do that may be different or the same from other people?
I don't know if I do anything. I feel like since I progressed in my practice, I try to be more aware, although I'm not perfect at this. People know me. I try to be more aware of what I'm saying and how I'm saying it, just because I feel like when you're more magically in tuned or spiritually in tuned, I think sometimes we can forget that just because we don't have a candle and we don't have herbs and we're not at an altar, I think our words carry power and they carry magic. So I try to be aware of that. And people just throughout the community and just having conversations with the other witches, you know, when you're driving down the road and you get road rage and you're yelling and screaming at somebody, like that's
right. And that was kind of leading into the next topic, as I was going to say, you know, you talk about like people hexing you and cursing you. Not everybody has to sit there in a room and do a candle spell to hex and curse you. You could, you know, you're saying the road rage thing, or you get a Karen at a grocery store. You know, you've seen on the Golden Girls where, you know, Aunt Angela, well, that and Aunt Angela and Sophia sit there and go back and forth. You know, may the marinara never stick to your pasta. May your socks fall down into your shoes. You know, they're not sitting there doing a whole bunch of things, but they're sitting there doing the thing, you know? So it's kind of one of those things where people can lay upon you via words so many things out in public. You know, like from road rage to having a disagreement with, even having a disagreement on a social media platform. Good example. I know this is kind of off, you know, the beaten path, but as you know, Justin and I both play The Sims, and there's this new Sims expansion pack that's coming out in December that I watched the trailer for. I was not very thrilled with it. I felt they're repackaging two of the other expansion packs, putting a, you know, a twist on it and throwing it out there. And I happened to say that. I said, well, I feel like we've already gotten these two. You know, we got City Living, we got Snowy Escape. I feel like I want something different. And they started calling me all these names, like, you know, people that were excited about the expansion pack because I was the unpopular opinion. Everybody's excited about it, and I'm not. And I left it was on Facebook, it was on a group in Facebook. I said, well, I'm not really excited about it because I feel like it's Snowy Escape and City Living repackaged. And they're like, you're racist. You know, you got Asian hate. And I'm like, whoa, wait, what? And they started calling me all these names via a social media platform because I didn't like two of the packages that were coming out for The Sims. You see what I'm saying? So that negative talking, even if it's typing, those are words that are being put out, you know, into the atmosphere, whether it's, you know, on a social media platform or not. When you get in those typing wars, you know, everybody's kind of probably been in one at one point, right? On a social media platform, and you're going back and forth with somebody you don't even know, you know? And these people started coming after me because I didn't like the new expansion pack that's coming out. I shouldn't say I didn't like it. I wasn't thrilled about the trailer. You know, and I started thinking to myself, like, I have to back away from this. Like, and I ended up like deleting my comment, even though it was completely innocent. Because I didn't want any more of these words being shot down on social media. So you got to watch out for that too, because people can put bad energy through their words when it comes to social media as well. That's why I always say, be careful what you want to put on social media when you want to like argue with somebody or you want to have a disagreement with somebody, because it can go really, because people get keyboard warriors, right? They don't know you. They can't see you. They're behind a keyboard or their phone, and they'll say shit about you, to you, whatever, and sort of whole snowball with words, right? So you got to be careful of social media these days as well when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Speaking on that, just a side note, running down the beaten path with you. It's funny that they said that you're racist and Asian hate, yet EA is releasing an expansion pack that's based in an Asian world and are also introducing a virus.
Let me explain. So, because Snowy Escape is based out of Japan, that they take basically real world places so people understand The Sims. When they come out with expansion packs, they take culture of a different part of the world, a different city, different town. Like they've done San Francisco, but call it San Sequoia. Like they'll take, you know, ideas from other places. In Snowy Escape, it was based off Japanese culture. So the world that you get in The Sims looks like Japan. They don't call it Japan, but it's based off, and they work with different Japanese artists and stuff to kind of like make sure the culture's correct. So we already had an Asian themed world. I never said even the word Asian. I just said, I feel like we're getting Snowy Escape and City Living repackaged again. I wish they would do something different. And they said, this is not Snowy Escape that was Japanese. This is Thailand. This is Thailand and Japan, and even China for that matter, are completely different Asian countries. I'm like, you think I don't know that? I'm not saying that they're all the same country. And then one guy said, that would be like people saying that Canada United States and Mexico are all the same because you're on the same continent. And I'm like, okay, that's not, first of all, you guys are going way off to left field. That's not at all what I was saying. I'm aware that even though they're all Asian, they are different, very different cultures. I get it. But we've already done an Asian theme. It would be great to do Australia or Italy or New Zealand or something that we haven't seen before. I got called a racist, an Asian hate person, a whole bunch of other things just because I said I wanted something different. So that's the reason why they came after me, because they thought that I hated Asians. And that was the reason why I didn't want Snowy Escape ×2.
Even though EA introduced a virus in an Asian-themed world, it's a little interesting to me.
Correct. Yeah.
That they decided to integrate that.
I mean, one even went so far as going to my Facebook profile, seeing that I was from Boston, and then putting a comment saying, "Oh, she's from Boston, so she's sheltered. She doesn't know any cultures but white."
Oh,
I was
God.
like, you know what? I've never gone to any of your profiles ever and scoped you guys out because you're strangers to me. I don't know you, and I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to act like I know you because I don't. So it just got way too heated, way too quick over a fucking video game. So I was like, you know what? This is not worth it. There's too much negative hate going on here. So I just deleted my comment, left the group, and said, bye-bye. But that's just an example. That's just an example of how you got to be careful when you're responding to things on the internet, because those words, even though they're typed out, those words, yes, your magic is tied to your emotions. Exactly. Those words can go 17 different directions. So, that's why I always even tell my husband, don't be a keyboard warrior. Like, you don't need to voice every opinion that you have. Sometimes it's not worth it. Just keep scrolling. Just keep scrolling. So.
Oh, the alcohol is hitting me. Oh my God. Okay.
All right, then.
Yes, I agree. That's something I've become more aware of is, words and, what is the saying? Unknowingly cursing somebody or throwing negative vibes. I don't even know what vibes mean. Energy, all of those types of things are very, kind of prevalent. I wanted to ask as well, when you're writing a spell, okay, when you're sitting down, you're going to write a spell, you're coming up with what you're going to say. I know we touched on this already a little bit, but how important is it to you that it rhymes?
Not at all. As a matter of fact, I don't think any of my spells have rhymed. The only time actually they have rhymed when I've done the babbling thing, because I have done the babbling thing where you kind of find the words as you go and then somehow they end up rhyming and you didn't really intend for that to happen, but it sounds cool and you just go with it. That has happened. But when I'm writing like petitions or writing out a spell, stuff, it doesn't ever. So I don't find that important because I mean, to each their own, obviously. That's what witchcraft is all about. But for me, I don't think that your words need to be fancy. They need to be more specific, straight to the point. And I find that when you say the words, you have to believe them. That's the biggest part of everything. No matter what the words are, you have to believe that as you're saying these words, they've already happened. That's right. Really, really important to me when I'm saying them, because at the end of every spell I've done, I always say, so it is, so it has happened, so it's done. Along with so mote it be, as most people say. I usually say like, so it is, or so it has been done. Because as I'm saying it, as I go down, as I continue to go down, I'm picturing each line as I go to the next one, the one before it already happening. You see what I'm saying? Like a time.
Yes.
By the time that I'm done, all those lines, everything I've just said has happened. And that's why they say intent is so important, because you have to believe everything that you're putting out there. That intent has to be really strong. So you can't, that's why I always say if I fuck up, I always go back, because I don't want to lose my train of thought. I don't want to lose my whole conscious awareness and my intent. So I will go back and start over, so that there's no to the universe or to any deity, there's no mistaking my words. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I think it's also very important to understand energy work. Because I think, like you're saying, we talk a lot about intention. We talk a lot about correspondences and more people are starting to talk about this. I know Ivy the Occultist just talked about this in a video, is understanding how to ground, how to center, and how to direct that energy. There is obviously power in the words we speak, especially when there's an immense amount of emotion behind that, whether that's anger or frustration or, greed or lust or desire. There's all of those things feed what you're doing, right? And the words that you're speaking. But I think it's also very important to understand how to ground, how to center, and how to take that energy that you're building within yourself and how to place that energy in that candle or in those herbs and moving that magic. Because I think sometimes it can almost sound like, as long as you have the things, right? Or as long as, okay, I have my green candle, right? And I put my money drawing oil in there and I want money. Okay. Money, come to me. Money, so shall it be. I just made that up. Okay. And you light the candle and you put it there and, you're watching it and you're thinking and you're chanting, doing your thing. We're good. And you walk away. Again, I've always said this, and a lot of people say this: magic is like water and it's going to take the easiest path forward. And I think when you practice magic like this is just an opinion, okay? It's not a fact, just my opinion. You're throwing kind of just shit to the wind. You know what I mean? When you approach magic like that, it's almost reckless. You have to understand, and I think there needs to be more conversation about the reverence when practicing magic and going in it intentionally, taking that moment and that time to acknowledge your emotional state, grounding that, collecting that. And when you're making that working, when you're doing that spell, that you're moving that energy into what you're doing. Because I think sometimes, I don't necessarily think it's what's happening offline, but I think a lot of the times for people who are newer or people who become stagnant in their magical practice, it comes off as those, as long as you have the intention and you want the money, then that's enough. And I don't know that that's necessarily true completely. Like, obviously, like you said, I 100% agree. Like, your intention is important. Like, your intention can't be money and you're sitting here doing a love spell. I mean, let's be realistic here. Like, everything's got to line up appropriately. But I think we also have to be aware of the energy work that goes into it to make the spell hopefully more successful and to heighten our odds that we're going to get something that we're actually wanting. Does that make sense?
I mean, for me, I do that a little bit differently. For me, it's exactly the way you explained it, blah, 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 and then walk away. But with candle magic specifically, that's why they call it feeding the candle, feeding the spell. For me, I know everybody's different with 7-day candles, Novena candles. I know everybody's different. Some people will light that sucker and they will not blow it out until it will blow up by itself when it's done. Like, they'll put it in the bathtub, whatever. I am a fire safety freakazoid. I will not leave even 7-day candles burning by themselves in the witchy room. I won't do it. So for me, when I fix that candle, I put all the energy in it then, yes. But then I blow it out because I will not leave it burning in this room. But every time I come back to that candle until it's done, I feed it with more oils, more intention, more herbs, all the things. But and then I sit there and I do this whole, here's the spell, like say it's in a bubble, it's in my head and it comes down through my arms into the candle. Yes. That's how I do it. But like I said, I'm different. I don't do Novena candles or any kind of candle magic and leave it burning. I absolutely fucking will not do it. I know they say that Novena candles, 7-day candles are the safest to just leave burning. That's what they're designed for. I get it. But you never know. You never know what can happen when you go down to Walmart or go down to Target or go down to get some gas or you leave the room to go to bed. You don't know if, the air conditioning kicks on and somehow hits something and it hits that and then it hits you don't know. So I will not leave any candle magic going until it burns out. I only have candle magic going when I'm physically in the room. I do, however, like if I'm in here doing the magic, blah, 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 I got to go take a shower. I got to do a load of dishes. I got to do a little laundry. I will leave it. I will leave it, in the room, but I will come back and peek on it constantly throughout the day because I'm anal retentive like that when it comes to fire. I don't want my house to burn down. Okay. But with me, I feel like every time I blow it out, I'm kind of stopping some progress. So that's why every time I come back to it, I'm feeding it. It's herbal remedy, or it's fixing ingredients. I'm feeding its oils, and then I'm feeding it its intention. So I'm constantly feeding candle spells. So for me, it's a little bit different where I can do the thing and then walk away. I don't have to sit there and sit with it the whole time.
But you are doing the energy work. You're literally saying exactly what I'm saying. That is 100% true. Right. You do have to keep feeding it. I did want to say I'm a lazy person. Basic witch, that's my vibe. That's my brand. Okay. I typically leave them lit just because if I don't, who knows if it'll get lit again. But so that's that. But I also, when I leave it lit, Brittany, I don't know if you do this or anybody in the audience, please chime in. When I'm working a spell, regardless whether I'm calling in spirit or not, Hecate, if I'm working with the saint, regardless of what it is, I have a tendency to always keep it on my mind why that spell is going. And then once the working is complete, the candle has burned out, or it's been buried, or it's been disposed of, whatever kind of avenue I choose to do. Once it's done, I don't think about it anymore. I just let it go and just let it flow. I did want to also address this. So Kayla Marie said, when I write a spell, I always include no harm done at the end of the spell. So we did, I think, an episode years ago now. I can't even believe we can say that, years ago. But I think it was mechanics and witchcraft. Maybe we talked about this. I don't know. Maybe it was the ethics episode. I don't know. We've done 50. It's hard to keep track. But I don't include harm none. And the reason why I don't is because I believe, this may be a hot take, I believe the potential to harm somebody is there in every working we do. Because I take the approach of a kind of a scientific one. I don't think energy can be created nor destroyed. So I think when we are creating a spell or a working, whatever terminology you want to use, and you're collecting this energy and pushing it out, I think, in my opinion, that including harm none can stunt the progression of the working. And why I say this is a perfect example, and this is something Taya Kennedy talked about in a video a while ago, is say Brittany comes to me and says, hey, I really want this job. It's perfect for me, right? And she comes to me in Owlvine, which, newsflash, we've done this before, not for a job, but for other stuff going on in our lives. Like, hey, I'm trying to do this. Will you girls do a little something to help me along, right? So Brittany comes and says, hey, I want this job at this witchy shop. Will you do some working for me, right? So we do the get the job spell. And she gets the position. Innately, that working is going to harm somebody because odds are she's not the only applicant. And maybe someone who's more financially strained needs that position. But that doesn't happen because of the working. So this is just my opinion. Again, not factual. This is just my own vantage point.
And I completely agree with that.
And how I view it. Like if I want money and somehow I win the lottery or whatever the case may be, I am not only potentially, but more than likely taking an opportunity from somebody else and dragging that towards me. And I'm not saying that that's a negative thing. I think when we pray to, Christians pray to God or whatever religion, you're also potentially doing that. You're asking for intercession on your behalf. And I think scientifically, energetically, magically, you're attracting that energy to you and you're pulling that away from somebody else. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's spoken about as though it's a bad thing, but that's just kind of my view on that.
The only spell work that I have to say that I do once, walk away from it and never feed it again, like, and I'm not just talking candle magic, because this can go with anything, is any kind of freezer spells. Because I feel once I've done the thing, I send it off and it's in my freezer, that motherfucker's frozen. Like, I don't need to do nothing. It's a done deal. That is the only spell. Freezer spell is the only one that, like, I will sit here and push it all into whatever it is, whether it be a Ziploc bag, a freaking plastic bag, whatever the situation is, a bottle, push that shit in, put that shit in the freezer. Once that's frozen solid, I will leave it in my freezer for like a month or two, just for extra, you know, you don't want that shit to thaw until, you know, whatever. But I do find that once it's been a couple months, I'll throw the shit in the trash. It's been done decades ago. You know what I mean? So that's the only one that I do and then just walk away and never think of ever again.
It's funny that you say that. So I have...
How many people do you have in your freezer, Justin? How many people?
I don't have a lot, a couple. I'm a firm believer. Okay, so when we're talking about avenues of magic, okay. Again, the witch's tongue. I'm just throwing that in there because that's the name of the episode. So we're just tying it all together. The witch's tongue. I think that it all depends on the avenue in which you're going to practice the magic, right? So if you're doing some sort of working and you're going to place it in the ground, everything, well, I'm having a whole rush of thoughts here. Okay. There's different speeds of spell work, right? If you're going to work with the element of earth and you're going to put it in the earth and it's going to be on the breakdown through, you know, the earth and the worms and everything, breaking it down. Obviously that working is going to take place over time, you know, as it breaks down, as things happen. I take a different approach. When I do a freezer spell, it never comes out of the freezer, ever. It stays there.
What happens if you move out of the house you're in?
It goes in the new freezer. And let me tell you something, honey. The freezer spells that I have, we cleaned out our deep freeze and Rachel had it sitting and one started to de-thaw. And I said, what are you doing? That needs to go back in there now. It's almost liquefied. It needs to go back in there. She's like, what? I thought it was done. No, this is just me.
I'm different.
No, it goes back in there. In the back of the freezer, frozen over, frostbitten. That's just me. I'm not saying it's the right way. That's just the way that I see it because I view it as the freezing is the solidification of the working. And I feel like the moment it's not frozen anymore, it's releasing that bind. It's releasing that back into the world.
Feel like they're frozen to the point where the situation or the whatever's got going on, because you know, it's kind of like this. It's kind of like you're the new person in school, right? And everybody's noticing you and everybody's making fun of you, whatever. But then a new girl comes in and you're completely forgotten about your old news. It's kind of like the same thing. Once you have something going on, like say someone's talking at work behind your back or whatever, and you freeze that bitch. But then she's moved on to the newbie who came into the cafeteria or whatever at the facility, and she's doing it on her. You're forgotten. Your old news. You can take that shit out and throw it away. Do you see what I'm saying? When that person has moved on in your old news, that's when I feel it's safe to throw it away. I'm just giving an example.
Well, we all have the right to be wrong. No. Fuck off. I mean, I've done freezer spells years ago that I eventually threw away. I mean, I don't know.
The magic, it was so old. You threw it away, but did that spell ever get unwound? No.
They died.
So
They're dead. She got hit by a car. No. I don't know. For me, just thinking about it, in order for me to throw the freezer spells away, I would have to follow that up with one last piece of working to dominate them, to not even to dominate them, but just to drive them away. You know, okay, the freezer spell's done. I'm ditching it. I want it out of my freezer. I'm going to go ahead. I am going to baptize this candle. I am going to put in the essence of this person. I'm going to dominate their brain, their mind, and I want to erase them, my whole memory of them. I mean, their memory of me. And then I want them to die.
But have you ever heard of neutralizing it with peeing in in the spell?
Say that again?
There is something I read in one of the many books I have up here that if you have a freezer spell that you want to get rid of, and because there's talking about how to get rid of spell remnants, and you don't want to thaw out and then that shit becomes shit again, you pee in it. Like, say it's a Ziploc bag, it thaws out and it's just the water with the herbs and whatever else you got going on there. You pee in the bag to kill it, and then you discard it.
Well, I use Chinese, the Chinese containers that the soup comes in with the lid?
Yes.
I have a couple of those in my case.
Pee in it.
That's a good idea. I'll have to try that.
It neutralizes anything that's thawed out and that can go escape, pee in it.
Did you hear me fart?
Yes, I did.
Okay, let's just move past that. I'll have to try that. Because my freezer's full. I have a whole deep freeze full of people.
It was in one of these books I read. I don't know which one it was in. Oh, it was this one. It's in this one right here. Spells for the Solitary Witch.
Looks like an old publication.
It is an old publication, but she does a whole section on what to do with spell remnants after you're done with them, and she says pee on them.
Aradia said drop it in war water. Girl, I love my war water.
Yeah. Oh, shit, what the fuck was that? Oh, a feather dropped.
I love war water, Aradia. I love it. You could fart in it. That's very true, Jennifer. Fart on it.
Yeah.
Neutralize that energy.
She saw my farting episode.
It is very interesting to see the different approaches and how people see magic. And that's one reason why I don't typically bury. And I'm just thinking now, like, I guess I could bury the freezer spells because, the energy of the earth is neutralizing. So maybe that could work, like bury it. But then you got to dig a hole and that's just too much energy. But, you could do that. I've never been a burying type person just because who has the time?
Well, I've buried stuff without a shovel. I usually there's 2 times I've buried something. I did one spell where I took an egg and I took a thumbtack and I made a tiny little hole and then I drained out all the innards and discarded them. Or did I make an omelet? I might have actually used it. Anyway, and then I did a petition spell, and I rolled it up and I put it through the hole in the egg. So there's nothing in the egg, but it was completely hollow with just my petition in it, and I sealed it with wax. And then I went to go bury it. Now, obviously, I'm not going to go out, and I lived on a golf course at the time. I'm not going to go out to hole 9 with a shovel, okay? That would just look really discerning. So I literally just found a really it was by the where the cart path was. It was like a kind of a wood's edge, and it was like there's some leaves there and some soft mud and light sand or whatever. I just literally took my shoe and I dug with my shoe deep enough to maybe 5-6 inches down with my foot and just put it in there and then just covered it over. So I didn't really dig a big hole, and the other one did the same thing. In this house, right across from my house is a big huge open field, and they were leveling something out for a soccer portion of the field where there's a little mound of dirt. I literally just put it in the fucking mound of dirt. So you use that because you walking around with a goddamn shovel in the middle of the night. I mean, I'm sorry, people are gonna start talking. That's
right,
why
with the jar.
When I move, I even said to Anthony, I hope we don't have sketchy people, because if I'm out in the backyard doing some shit, I don't want them to be that she's burying a dead body or something in her backyard. You see what I'm saying? I hope people are cool with the witch next door, because I know about that life.
I saw her outside in her backyard burying a fetus.
That was a Barbie. I'm sorry.
That was the Barbie. I mean, we are in Florida. We could always do a spell and feed it to the alligators.
And the funny thing is, I live, well, not now, but where I'm moving to, I live on a preserve. There's a big, huge pond behind my house. If you watch any of my Brittany Builds a House videos, you'll see when I show you the view. There obviously, as rule number 1 in Florida, every body of water in Florida has an alligator. It's the number 1 rule. So if there isn't one right now, there's gonna be one. So I could always throw shit in that pond and be like, bye-bye.
Well, speaking of this, Aradia, so I made an ancestor, we call the video for Samhain. And I did leave an offering to the ancestors, some sourdough bread with honey on it. And, you know, once the bread started to harden, I thought, what should I do with this bread? So I put it in my ass. No, I didn't. I put it outside by a palm tree because I wanted to really kind of call in the Sunshine State Witch. I wanted to call her in. But, you know, I felt like I would give it back to the earth, give it to the tree, give it to the ants, give it to the poor. I am the poor. But give it to the homeless animals. I felt like that was a very good way to do it. But I do like that idea, doing spells and wrapping it in food inside at an ant farm. The ants demolish it. That's, you know, I like the creative ways of thinking of how to get rid of things.
Well, I mean, I think that the pile of dirt that's out in this field, there were like 17 different red ant farms, like right around that pile of dirt. And I remember telling you in Olivine that, remember, I was like, dude, the red ants were fucking like massive out there. So the red ants, if you live in a tropical area like Florida or anywhere there's red ants, Texas has them. Right, getting getting bitten by a red ant is like awful. It's the most awful fucking thing in the world.
Welcome to Florida, Blackbird.
Yeah. Best place to be.
Well, I don't know about that, but okay.
Well, I wasn't born and raised here, bitch.
I know. But I love to hear all the different ways to dispose of things. And I think feeding spells to animals is both dangerous and effective. You just want to be safe, you know, if you're disposing of anything for the wildlife to eat, that it is edible. We don't want to be killing animals because then, you know, it just smells up the whole neighborhood. So we don't want to do that.
Well, you know, I have heard.
What have you heard? Tell me.
Or not. I have heard that. Actually, no, I'm not going to tell you because if I tell you, you're going to be like, no, I'm not even.
And now I need to know, bitch.
It has to do with feces. I'm not going to.
Yeah, I want to hear it.
To bury your stuff in your feces and then bury it.
Really? Why? What's the thought process behind that? Because
if you're going to bury it, say you bury a spell and a fox comes along and digs it up, well, then it's sitting there on the grass and for anybody to see and it to be not buried. You see what I'm saying? So if you put it in your own poop, they're going to smell that and be like, yeah, I ain't touching that.
So I wonder, are you carrying it out to the hole covered in shit? Or do you put it?
I've just heard, because think about it. You bury, say it's a petition with, I don't know, some wax or something, whatever, some salt, I don't know, whatever. And you go to bury that outside. You always have this fear of an animal digging it up, seeing what it is, and then just like throwing it. You know what I mean? Like, and then your shit's not buried anymore. They say stick it in your poop and then bury it. I've never done it. Don't know anything about it. I've heard to keep the scent or pee on it, you know, to keep this, I don't know. This is just what I've heard.
I just wonder, are you carrying it out covered in shit, or do you dig the hole, put the working in there, and then pull your pants down and shit in the hole in public and get arrested for indecent exposure? Or how are we doing this? That's what I want. I want to know the optics of it all. And then like when you're peeing on it, or do you pee on it beforehand? Or are you putting it in the hole and squatting, or just pulling out the cock and pissing on it? Like, what are we doing exactly? I need to know the semantics of it all.
I didn't say I've tried this shit. I just heard that to put your scent on things so that they're not dug up by wild animals, and then whatever you need to bury is not buried anymore.
Well, like NMMK. Okay, that's a hard name to say. I'm so sorry, baby. And when they do, animals do eat poop. I think it's very true. I mean, my dog used to eat cat shit out of the litter box. So I think, yeah, I thought about having her euthanized, but I decided against it. Owlvine says, depends on the privacy you've got. I mean, I'm not shy. Maybe I should be. I don't know. Yeah, the logistics. I need to know the logistics of it all. I mean, because I already know my own family thinks I'm crazy when I'm collecting cat shit, putting it in a bottle, and then pulling out my penis and pissing in the bottle. What is going on here? It's war water, honey.
My war water did not contain. Wait, did it contain pee? I haven't made war water in a long time. No, actually, it did contain pee. It did. It did. I did not have the cat at the time that I made war water, so I did not put. Look, I can't even change the litter box without puking. So, that probably ain't gonna happen.
So put your vomit in there. Bleh. Just get a funnel, stand by the litter box, and just bleh in there. I mean, don't clean your toilet for like a month. Wait for the black.
Not clean my toilet.
Wait, no, listen. You wait for the black crusties to start, and then you just scrape them off and put them in the war water. That's the thing about war water that people don't understand. It has to be nasty. It has to be. You can't be putting like roses and orchids in it.
Vile.
It has to be vile, honey. If you can go to a funeral home and get some formaldehyde, that's perfect as well. I think we took a right turn. This is the right turn, okay? This is educating people on baneful magic, and they need to know.
I'm gonna pee myself.
Wrap it up in a period pad, exactly. Menstrual blood is very powerful. It's very powerful, especially the ones that have clumps and shreds.
Look, there was an episode where I started to poop talk, and somehow we have talked about poop at the behalf of you. I don't know.
Listen, magic can be savage. I feel like a lot of the narrative about witchcraft, we try to package it up in this pretty little, gift wrapping, and it's not pretty. I mean, let's be real here.
Witchcraft is feces.
Let's be real, okay? Oh, everything's beautiful and we're not demonic. No, we are, okay? We're demonic pieces of shit, okay? And the truth is, we work with blood. We work with poo. We work with animals. We work with everything. You know what I'm saying? So let's just embrace it and understand body parts and fluids. Oh my, exactly. Who has an extra thumb that they want to donate? I'll give you my address. Send the body parts my way. I'm just saying, like, there's magic in everything. And the more visceral we can be in legal limits, okay? We don't want to do anything illegal, but, cheers. What are you doing? Is something happening?
My spell over there was gurgling. I swear to God, I'm sitting here talking. It was going.
Is that good or bad? What does your intuition say?
It looks exactly the same it did 5 minutes ago, but it was making a fucking weird gurgling noises, like it was like I cut its throat. And it was going.
Okay, so I want to ask you and other people in the audience, use your foreskin. Exactly. Rub a little oil on your foreskin. They may have extra foreskin at the hospital.
What is the cottage cheese stuff? What is the cottage cheese stuff?
Huh?
What is the cottage cheese stuff?
Oh, Famunda cheese. Famunda cheese.
No, there's a medical term for it.
Famunda cheese.
No, it's not. Remember, I was reading a book and I said, Justin, what is this?
Are you talking about private stuff? You're talking about smegma.
Yes.
Yeah, don't look that up. The FBI will come knocking on your door.
It was in a witchcraft book, and they said, what book was that?
They did. They said smegma. Yeah, yeast.
What book was I reading? And I think it was for book club, and we were reading it. I'm like, what is this? And you start giving me the whole medical term of I'm like, and so you're like, whatever you do not Google it. Do not. And of course, if someone says don't Google something, you Google it. I was like, why? You're like, I told you not to Google it.
Yeah, Rachel's talking about blue. Yeah, don't Google blue waffle either. That's a perfect, again, another example. You don't have to use the tools. We talked about that with farts. If you have a yeast infection, let it rage. If you start getting yeast buildup, scrape it off, put it in some more water. Do not let these things happen. Don't let the magical abilities pass you by. You have to seize the moment. Don't let a yeast infection go by without capitalizing on it. That's all I'm saying. What is this? This is Wine and Witchcraft Live, baby. That's what this is.
And what is it? What is smegma? Is what he was
asking. So smegma is where a gentleman that's not so gentle has not washed the area around his penis, the head of his penis. So if you've never seen a penis, or it's been a long time, there's a head and there's a shaft. Okay, we're going to go through an anatomy class. Aradia said, done. I'm done. And he doesn't wash his penis. He doesn't clean it, right? And so lint and sweat gets around the head of the penis, and it starts to smell like godforsaken death. Okay. That's smegma. Okay. Now, if you're in that current situation or you know somebody who is, do not let the moment pass you by. Get a little teaspoon, scrape it off, put it in some warm water. You will not regret it. Okay. It is the ingredient of a lifetime. Just saying. Okay. I just think, as witches, we have to be resourceful. And let's be real here. Let's be real. Let's be really real for just one time. The witches of yesteryear did not have witchy stores to go to, okay? They didn't just go buy oregano at mass production. You had to use what you had. That's why we use pee and blood and feces and animal parts and all of these other things, because that's what was readily available. If you're cooking bread, you use the yeast. If you have a yeast infection, you use the yeast. Don't let the moment pass you by. That's all I'm saying. Use semen. Use it. Use it all. If you have herpes buildup, scrape some herpes off. Use it. You can use that to infect somebody's mind, infect somebody's life. You know what I mean? Venereal diseases are very beneficial. Go get one today. Right, it's free.
Where did this go from witch's tongue to venereal disease?
Because you put your witch's tongue on the area of the venereal disease. And then you have it in your mouth, and then you use that in your words of power. See, it's witchcraft. Crabs. Thank you, crabs. We can use them.
Oh my God.
Use it to invoke pain on somebody.
I haven't laughed so hard I cried in a very long time. Oh my God.
But I did want to.
We set our clocks back an hour tonight, don't we?
Is it tonight or is it tonight?
It's tonight at 1 o'clock. At 1 o'clock, when it's supposed to become 1, it becomes 12 again. Oh wait, or is it when it's supposed to become 2, it becomes 1 again? So
when we're at an hour and a half, are we really only at 30 minutes?
No, it hasn't happened yet.
Oh, okay.
It happens at like 1 or something, or is it at midnight? No, it's at 1. It turns back to 12. I don't know. I just know what happens.
I think it happens at 2 and then it goes back to 2.
I thought it was 2 a.m. because so when it's supposed to be it's 1:59, it's supposed to go to 2, it goes and it goes back to 1.
So does that mean whatever happens in that hour didn't happen? So
Correct.
we're entering a liminal space. Okay, witches, get ready.
Yes, theoretically, yes. In that split second before it changes back, that shit did not happen.
It didn't happen. So murder is legal. It's the purge. So what I wanted to address here is a very important topic. What do you feel when you do magic? Like, do you have a feeling that you want to have to know that it's working? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, do you like you talked about the goosebumps? Everyone in the chat, like, do you have a feeling or something that physically happens where you're like, okay, it's working? Mine is my hands shake and my balls go back into my body. And then I know that it's happening. So
so for me, like I told you, my intent is a bubble. It's an orb. And then it goes down my arms into whatever I'm doing. And it literally comes out my fingers. When that happens, I get like that whole like, that like chill thing.
Yes.
Excuse me, I'm burping. And when that happens, I know that I've done it correctly. If I can't obtain that, then body vibrates. Like your body vibrates.
I read an article, and this is for real. I know it's going to sound like I'm making it up, but it's not. Where some women if they're doing the working, like let's just say candle spell, they'll do it on the floor, right? And then they take off their pants and they take off their panties. And they don't do anything with the candle. I'm not going to say that. But they will open their legs and they will channel their magic through the uterus, out their vaginal canal, into the working. Because they feel like the thought process is you create life, right? In the womb, and it comes out of your vaginal. And so they push the magic like the ball through that area and kind of give that into the working. Okay. Hello?
Chelsea?
Chelsea? I think this is the last episode.
Yeah, I've never done that. I'm really glad that my new witchy room, the window faces the alligator preserve because
what?
My witchy room, the window faces the preserve where the alligators are in the big pond. Because if my window faces the neighbors and they can't, you can see into the room and they see a naked lady from the waist down hovering over a can. Can you imagine? I would be the talk of the subdivision.
Yeah, they'd be like, call the police. Stop. I feel you though on that. There is like that inner, and people are saying in the chat, my body vibrates, my body buzzes, I feel chills.
Yep.
I feel the same way. I feel like the energy that you build up is so strong for me that like my hands almost start vibrating.
Yeah, me too.
And there are times where like I can't quite get there and I kind of get irritated and I'm kind of like, okay, I'm gonna let this sit and then I'm gonna come back to it. Because there is a feeling where you feel like you gotta feel it, right? To know that it's happening. Like it's a physical thing that happens. Okay. You can use a queef to push it out.
You know, when I was younger, I used to be able to queef on command. I can't do it anymore.
I wouldn't say that in public areas.
I remember, I was a gymnast, right? And I remember being on the uneven bars and I was hanging upside down, just fucking around, not doing anything special. And my coach is like, it's time to do warm-ups or whatever. And I was like, well, I'm stuck. I can't get down. So he went to go help me get down and I queefed. And he was like, really? And I'm like, sorry, I can do that on command.
I'm done.
I can't do it anymore now that I've had 2 kids, but yeah, I used to be able to do it. Yes, I did. I met Anthony. He's like, no, you can't. I go, yeah, no, I really can't. And he's like, show me. And I did. And he goes, what the fuck? I tried to do it like a year ago, and I think I've lost it. But I used to be able to just like literally do it on command. I can't anymore though.
Soulless Ember says 80s bush catches on fire. Yeah, let's not have an 80s bush.
Yeah, you would have to shave that before you did any of that nonsense.
Yeah, before you wind up with a flame. Otherwise, you're going to run up with a radiant.
Imagine going to the ER and like, ma'am, how'd this happen? Well, what you see was I was doing some witchcraft and I was pushing the energy out of my punani and my clam caught on fire. Can you imagine that?
Nobody wants a burnt clam. It's interesting that the feeling is kind of the same for a lot of people in the audience. It's a relaxed trance feeling.
Mine doesn't feel relaxed though. Mine feels like a jolt. I can't explain it. It's like a weird like.
I feel like it's when you're laying on the couch or you're doing something and you feel like that shiver down your spine. That's what it feels like to me. Like it's like a.
It feels like. Have you ever in the middle of the night, right, while you're sleeping, have a need to just completely stretch your legs out, like just like that in that that muscle, that great muscle feeling you get when you that whole body stretch? It's like that, but it comes through here and out. I can't put it in words. I can't put that energy in words.
Crispy clams. Yeah, nobody wants that.
crispy clam
It's like
strap.
I shift from logic brain to some sort of intuitive autopilot when the magic starts working.
Kind of, yes, absolutely.
Yes,
Yep.
I would agree with that.
Yep.
Absolutely. And that's why we call it the witch's tongue.
Anyway, so it is 10:30. That kind of concludes tonight's episode of The Witch's Tongue. We went down a couple pooey rabbit holes there. But I'm so glad you guys came to this episode. And I can't believe it's November already. Like, what the fuck? It's already turkey. It's turkey month. It's what the fuck? Crazy. But our next episode is when?
Our next episode is the Broomsticks and Bullshit. So it's a free talk. And that is going to be on November 18th. I was just looking at the calendar, so make sure I get the date right. So it's going to be a free talk. So come with your questions, come with your ideas, come with all your crazy comments, because we're going to have a blast. We're not going to have a topic. We're not going to have an outline. We're just going to kind of free ball it.
Like we do every single episode.
Right, like we do every episode, and we're just gonna kind of wing it. So don't miss that. Also, again, don't forget to comment and share the replay so that we can get the word out there, and like and subscribe and send all of your friends here to the show.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'm glad you guys came and joined us on this Saturday night, and we will see you. Hairball. We will see you in 2 weeks.
Yes. All right, guys. So you guys have a good night. We'll see you then, November 18th. Bye. Bye.